Hello there. I'm recording this video on Wednesday, the 8th of March, and I will probably release it in a couple of days when I'm feeling up to it, basically. I'll probably schedule it. And the reason I'm doing this video is to talk to you about what I'm going through right now. The whole point of this video is to share my experience and hopefully help others. So, content warning, I'm going to be talking about physical and mental illnesses, mostly PTSD, and non-specifics about physical stuff. If this is something that is going to harm you, if you're not in the place to hear it, skip the video, please. Look after yourself first. But this is somewhat of a PSA because, you know, we've talked before about the fact that invisible illnesses get forgotten by people not experiencing it. Today I've had to make some scary phone calls, and I'm not good with that. I'm not good with that. It really ramps up the trigger points. Makes me very sensitive to those triggers for the PTSD. I woke up this morning in pain. My shoulders and arms just feel like I've been beaten. You know, they feel bruised and battered. My lower back is bad. My legs are bad. And some of that is the fact that it's snowing. Weather can play a part. It's damp and cold, and that gets to me. My fingers and toes are somewhat discoloured from the Raynaud's. Raynaud's is bad circulation, basically, to the point where, you know, your fingers and nails can go white or blue. Same with your toes and things. So all of that is pretty gross and horrible to experience, because you have a lot of different sensations all over your body. But making those phone calls and facing those scary things, those things are trigger points. They always ramp up my anxiety and essentially send me into a PTSD episode, which is what I'm in right now. Now, you probably can't tell, you can probably tell I'm uncomfortable, but you can't tell that I'm having flashbacks and that I'm dissociating rather. It's different for a lot, you know, everyone's different. Everyone deals with it differently. Everyone experiences it differently. For me, it's very internal. Other than seeing that I'm uncomfortable or noticing that I am spacing out, you know, I look like I'm not paying attention to what's happening around me or what someone is saying. And it's not that I'm not paying attention. I'm trying really hard to pay attention. It's the fact that in those moments, although I am in the world, I'm not of the world. Dissociation for me also includes hallucinations, losing time. It's almost like I'm awake but asleep at the same time. And my hearing changes, my vision changes. Feels like both of those things are throbbing. So I get throbbing sounds. So it's like tinnitus, but it throbs. Very hard to explain. And the same thing happens with my vision. I get very lightheaded and lose my train of thought. And it is really hard to function through. I'm present, but I'm not really here. And the only way to support me through this is to give me time. Time to try and sleep it off, time for the medication to kick in where I feel safe. Some of the medication I'm on only really helps if I take it while I feel safe. If I'm anxious and I don't feel safe, medication doesn't do anything. It doesn't calm it down. It's debilitating. It is absolutely debilitating. And right now, I just want to crawl into bed and pretend that the world doesn't exist, or sink into what my brain is doing, which is telling me the world doesn't exist. And that's really hard. That's really hard. I also, and I know there are plenty of people with depression and anxiety and PTSD who will absolutely understand this. So I have absolutely no intention of unaliving myself. There are intrusive thoughts. I know exactly what they are. But there are times like this where it would be nice if a hole opened up underneath me and just swallowed me. It's not that I don't want to be here. I still want to be here. But there's something almost comforting in that idea. I'm fine. I'm safe. I am very lucky that I have a support system around me. I kind of live on an island. I'm far away from the family that I have left. We're far away from the family that my partner has left. But I have a very supportive partner, and I have friends that I can call on days like this if I need to. I also have friends all over the world that I speak to on a regular basis, and I have you. And that makes a difference, knowing that I can reach out to someone on bad days. But I think it's really important to be honest and open and have this conversation, especially surrounding mental health and invisible illnesses, because the way they're portrayed in the media, the way, PTSD is portrayed is awful. It is so over dramatized for media content, for films or TV or whatever, because they need to show what's happening. So you get these camera angles, point of view camera angles of the flashback being real. And, they have this break from reality, and actually it doesn't happen very often. The vast majority of people with PTSD are functional. They don't have that full break from reality. I'm not going to lie, it feels like reality is a lie to me right now. Nothing feels real. And my physical reaction, so there is actually a chemical reaction that is happening in my body right now. My body is flooded with adrenaline and all of those really awful flight, fight, freeze, fear reactions, the six F's, 5 F's, that are your, developed self-preservation chemicals, and we're all programmed with it. And right now my heart is racing. I am both hot and cold. I can feel my hands getting clammy. So there are physical reactions. But what is happening in my brain is there are misfirings, and it is telling me I am in a really dangerous situation, and it is trying to protect me by dissociating. My brain essentially is trying to play hold music to stop me from thinking about why I'm having this reaction, to making those phone calls and all of those things. So I wanted to do a video to show you bad days. I have bad days more often than I do videos about them. But I think it's one of those things. I'm fighting crying right now. is one of those things that it is really important that people who don't know see, and people who do know understand that they're not alone. This can happen. And PTSD can happen to anyone. There's this misnomer that it's first responders and soldiers and military personnel only. And PTSD can happen to anyone for any reason. Mine is the accumulation of 30 years of repetitive bad relationships, platonic relationships, familial relationships, romantic relationships, and abuse. And that didn't, I was cooking for a long time. I didn't boil over until I had my first kid. Something in me snapped while I was in labor. It was a traumatic birth experience, and my brain went, nope, we're not doing this anymore. We are going to stand up for ourselves, and that's what boiled me over. I don't regret having kids. I don't blame my kids for it. It's nothing like that. But PTSD can happen to anyone for any reason, and I think it's important to show what that is like. And honestly, if I could curl up in bed for the next 2 days and pretend that the world doesn't exist and I have no responsibilities and, sink into it, I would. And the urge is real. And again, this is really important to share, is the fact that we can't. We have to keep going. We have to keep putting one foot in front of the other, because society tells us we have to, that what we're going through is all in our heads. And yes, it is, but there is a physical change in how your brain is wired. There are actual medical evidence and papers and studies that my brain was wired differently. It suddenly had to wire itself differently to protect myself. This is real. And I want people to know, if you're going through something like this with PTSD, with depression, with any kind of mental illness, you are not alone. What you're going through is real. Please reach out to your GP, to a professional, get therapy, get help. Find your safe people, the people that you can share this with, the people that you can be real with, the people that you don't have to hide the physical side to what is happening in your brain with. Please look after yourself. I'm going to go and look after Litlin. But thank you for being